Hello and welcome to another live stream from the only source of information you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And as usual this week I will start by reading the latest stuff that I have been writing, and I'm gonna actually be reading from part 2 of the Melchizedek script. I've got part 1 and part 2 completed. All I have to do is complete part 3 and then write part 4, and I'll produce all of these and start posting them on YouTube. Anyway, we're going to start in the middle of part 2 at a chapter called the War of Peleg. This war took place in the very ancient past, which would explain why the kings Amraphel, Arioch, and Kedorlaomer have names of uncertain origin. Many cultures from the ancient past no longer exist. Being so short-lived, it is likely that the nations that these particular kings represented did not have time to leave any trace of their languages in written form. According to Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 1, Abram didn't just defeat these kings, he exterminated them. Without political leaders or a military, and probably without any remaining men, these people likely ceased to exist as nations and were absorbed by the surrounding nations very early in human history. The kings that Abram rescued were no better than the kings that Abram rescued them from. Even though they likely owed their lives to Abram, they still demanded that he give back their human property. As 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 7 indicates, Lot did not wish to be returned to Sodom, but apparently the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela were every bit as vile as the kings that Abram exterminated. Genesis chapter 14 and verse 4 explains in human terms why the kings from Shinar were so obsessed with hunting down the kings of the Promised Land. For 12 years they had served Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled. Apparently, Kedorlaomer was either too in line to be the successor of Nimrod, or he was attempting to take that position by force. Nimrod's reputation for hunting was likely based on his prowess as a hunter of humans. The Bible clearly indicates that Kedorlaomer was in the Promised Land hunting humans himself. Since Bela of Sodom demanded that Abram return Lot and the other people that he had rescued, Bela was very obviously a hunter of men as well. The war of conquest would set the pattern for all wars that would follow throughout all of human history. Chronologically, the 12-year period in which the kings of the Promised Land would have served the kings of Shinar would have to have occurred sometime after the death of Peleg, but prior to Abraham's migration into Canaan. Abram wandered around the Promised Land for an extended time, perhaps for the entire 12 years leading up to the rebellion. When the languages became confused at Genesis 11:9 and the people fled from Shinar to spread across the face of the earth, those who assumed power at Noah's death probably felt that they had the right to enslave any nation that was unable to defend itself, just as Earth's current world rulers feel today. It is obvious from the account that many powerful wicked men were taking advantage of the death of Noah in a bid for world domination. I guess that's a good place to end. That's the end of the chapter, or what I would call a chapter.
Okay, this week at the top spot is Kitchcool. He says, hey, I guess from merry old England. Next up is Pop-Tart. They say they give a cat smile, but then they go into saying they have the best news ever. They say they escaped from their narcissistic mom's house and now live on the family farm where they can have a garden and keep sheep and stuff like that. Next is Sleepy Girl 85 says, "Hey guys." Mishu says, "Hello Henry and everybody. I like how you have your trailer set up on your home YouTube page." Chester Richardson says, "Hi everyone." Simple Sister Living says, "Hi y'all." Hi Ollie Toledo and Sustenance Covering. Matt Wilcox says, "There's good sound," and then he says, "Hello." Grandma Patty says, "Hello everyone." Marie's Vegetable Garden says, "Hello all." Synoptic Problem says, "Hi everyone, coming in loud and clear tonight." Marshmallow says, "Hi everyone, got to be here this week and so happy." Karen Bain says, "Hello everyone." Let's see. Who Me says, "Hey." And Joseph Fields says, "Howdy" from Kentucky. And then Suze J says, "Howdy." First question looks like it's coming from Synoptic. He says, "Since Jesus is in the order of Melchizedek, and Melchizedek brought out bread and wine and presented it to Abram, was he foreshadowing the Lord's Supper?"
Wow, I'm glad. You know, that's why I do these things, I guess, so I can have people tell me what to think about, because I didn't even think about that. Let me give it a little thought for a second. You know, that's a big clue. Like when you read about the account of Melchizedek in the Old Testament, there isn't very much there. You know, Abraham's defeating these kings, and he ends up there in the land of Canaan, and Melchizedek comes out and gives him bread and wine, and then he responds by making tithes to Melchizedek. And that's basically it. But then you get into the New Testament, and they start throwing all these clues out at you, and that's when it starts getting good, you know. And so when it says that Jesus was in the order of Melchizedek, I don't know if people know what that means, because I don't think it says it like that in every one. I think some of them say he was like Melchizedek or something like that. But it's actually like in numerical progression. So Jesus is going to follow the pattern of Melchizedek in that he's, you know, they're numerical. You know, Melchizedek number 1, Melchizedek number 2, Melchizedek number 3. And so he's going to be this final Melchizedek. So Jesus is associated with Melchizedek and bread and wine. It sounds all, I'm going to have to look into that. I'm glad you brought that up. Now you see, you got me. I'll be thinking about that the whole time and not listening to anybody else. Good question. Like, no answer.
Yeah. A couple more quick hellos from Matt C. says, "Hello everyone," and Dale Rockwell says, "Hey all." Pod continues about their move to the country. They say they slept so well last night, just peace, no light pollution, no noise pollution, just the peaceful countryside. And then Marshmallow chimes in that they have 11 goats, 150 chickens, 5 and counting Peking ducks.
Peking ducks.
Okay.
Those are the ones that
those are only in China.
Yeah, those are the same ones everybody has. A Peking duck is like, that's a duck. That's what ducks are. They're Peking ducks.
So I hope so. Maybe good wishes or any advice for Pop-Tart on what to do when they get out in the boondocks like you guys like to live.
Woo! You have to come by here and hang out with me for a while. I'll show them how to get on food stamps and welfare. That's my secret to my success.
Let's see. Looks like Mountain Truth has just joined us and says hello. And then Grandma Patty says her preschooler has infected her with another virus, and she's trying to get well, and everybody's giving her well wishes.
One of the old school viruses before they came out with internet viruses.
Or all the vaccines to help people.
Yeah, here, take some fluoride. You'll get better.
Angel Forrester says, are narcissists a demon? Just curious on your take.
Yes.
What that means?
Yeah, a narcissist is somebody who, okay, if you like, I always bring this out in Galatians chapter 5. It says that, you know, the the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, mildness, goodness, long-suffering, kindness. And against these kind of qualities, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing bad. And then, that follows another line. It says the fruitage of the flesh, or those who mind the flesh. And all the churches in the world that I've ever been to, they talk about how the flesh is always associated with sexuality. And that's not what it's about at all. People who mind the Spirit recognize that they are a small part of a greater whole. People who mind the flesh, all they think about is themselves. And it was really bizarre for me. You know, I guess I knew growing up that there were bullies at school and all, and I thought, I've got to get away from these people. And I was happy when I first got to boot camp, because like everybody was my friend. And then they said, okay, you and you and you and you, come here. And they pinned on some little pin and said, you're the boot camp captain, and you're the boot camp general, and you're the boot... And these guys turned into monsters. Just from putting a little... They put it on their collar, you know, little stripes or whatever. And these guys were like the next day just screaming at me for no reason. And, you know, it seems to be some kind of thing that everybody has where they want to control others. Because that's what a narcissist is. A narcissist is, you know, a narcissist was like the goddess that stared at herself in the mirror all the time. You know, it's people that want to be gods. People that feel like not only do they have the right to tell everybody else what to do, but it blows their minds if people don't jump when they tell them what to do. I've never understood that. I've never in my life wanted to control anybody, and when I'm around people that want to control others, I'm not impressed. But yeah, it might be demons, demon possession. I can't think of any other reason to no other explanation for it. Genetically, I'm a human being. I know what I'm supposed to be feeling, and it ain't what those people are feeling. Something's wrong with them.
Well, Grandma Patty and Matt Wilcox both bring up the point about Peking duck. I guess that makes three of us that we all thought it was the meal and not the type of duck.
Okay, you're out of my league now. I've had Peking ducks, and I've had mallards, and I guess I've had Muscovies, and I've had a few different kind of ducks. But to me, they were just, I was never really educated on them. They were in my yard, and I liked throwing food out to them.
Well,
I almost actually caught a mallard one time, a wild mallard. I was in the dark, and this is a true story. And I don't know why I did this, but I pulled over on the side of the road in the swamp, miles from here, and I had like I had seen ducks on the water or something. And I mean, this is a real story. I stood there, and it was pitch black, and I could hear a duck back, you know, and so I was, and that joker walked right up to me, and he touched me. He went right between my legs, and I was like just waiting, but I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. But I called him. I called a duck out of the water with my voice.
Oh, the duck whisperer, right?
Yeah. It was a mallard, though. I know it was a mallard.
Let's see. Pop Dart Dumb says, screw food stamps. I'm going to grow my own food. And if they visit you, Sustenance and Covering, they will bring the first fruits of their garden along with them.
Hey, look, all the best. I'm wishing the best for you. You know, I'm a real old man. I have had 100 gardens in my life, and I think I paid more for the seeds than I would have paid for the groceries.
And then Mountain Truth chimes in that they have 20 goats, and they also have some ducks, and they defend the ducks, but they can be tasty ducks. Chester Richardson says, remember the two greatest commandments, what were those?
Love your God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. See, the people are throwing these things out. I'm like a machine up here, you know what I mean?
You're supposed to elaborate, you know?
Oh, yeah. Two greatest love.
No, you don't have to.
Well, if you go back to, we could bring this in with the narcissist, you know, they're the kind of people that love themselves, and that's all they love.
Well, it seems like everybody wants to talk about ducks. Now we're talking about Muscovy ducks or something?
Muscovies.
Muscovies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I get into ducks. I don't think
Nah.
I've hardly ever.
Hey, if they're talking about that in the chat, that's okay, but it ain't gonna happen with me. I don't know anything about ducks. I like to talk about stuff that I know about. I don't even mind if I'm being stumped about something, because usually that works in my favor. Eventually, I'll figure it out. But I'm not lost interest in ducks. And the reason I've lost interest is I've got all these chickens out here, and they're all in chicken houses. And you think, well, if you're already set up, you can have ducks. You can't really put ducks with chickens. That don't work. Ducks they make a mess, and they don't get along with chickens. I mean, they'll get along chickens in the yard, but they don't want to be housed with them. And I don't have to, I'm not about to go out there and start driving nails again at my age.
Well, it looks like the next question comes from Marie's Vegetable Garden. She'd like you to talk about the Mark of the Beast, and when they come out with the Mark of the Beast, either on the hand or are we supposed to reject it, or that without any thought or anything? Something about the Mark of the Beast. Man,
I wish that Usamos was not like on the other side of the planet and having a career, because he's a guy that knows all this stuff. Because I made a video about that, about the Mark of the Beast, and I can't remember the name of the video, but Usamos is always like, oh yeah, that was written in stone number 3 or something like that. He knows all these things. But I've made a video about the Mark of the Beast, and you got to remember, the book of Revelation is written, and I don't know if like maybe everybody doesn't know this, but I've made several videos where I say that the book of Revelation is written to and for the angels. It's written for us as well. I mean, it's in a human Bible on paper and ink, and so we're supposed to be aware of it, but a lot of the instructions in there are for angels in particular, and about angels. And so you have this long stretch where it's talking about the beast and the mark of the beast, and it says that it talks about those who have not taken the mark. Well, when it's talking about those that have not taken the mark, it's talking about the angels that are supporting Jesus, the angels that are going to enter into this combat at Armageddon with Jesus against Satan and his angels. It says that Satan and his angels are cast down, but when it talks about humans, it says all will accept the mark of the beast, because without the mark you cannot buy and you cannot sell. And see, that's already happened. We've already, right now, we don't get our food from the trees of life or even from ourselves, because it's almost impossible to do. It is impossible to do. I don't know of anybody anywhere that still does that. Even if you find indigenous peoples, they're not out there growing their picking fruit off of trees. They're killing monkeys and stuff. But we're stuck, until the system comes to an end, until Satan is removed from the earth. We have the mark of the beast. There's no getting around it. Now, when it talks about it being in your right hand, it's not talking about a mark on your right hand. It's specifically making a reference to all of the right hands in the Bible. If you read through the Bible, like when you read about Judah and Benjamin, Judah and Benjamin were the only 2 tribes left out after Israel was carted off to Assyria. And it's the thing about Judah and Benjamin is that every man in Judah was right-handed, and every man in Benjamin was left-handed. And see, Judah is the seat of power. That's your governing authority. When it says Jesus is told to sit at the right hand of God, or when the Israelites or the Jews returned from Babylon, or from when they were carted off, Persian Darius, or one of the Persian governors, gave the Jewish people the materials and things that they needed to build a temple. So it was a Persian temple is what they ended up building in Jerusalem. And it said in prophecy, and I think it's Malachi chapter 3 and verse 1. I'm pretty sure that's where it's at. Malachi, that means my angel. Malachi chapter 3 and verse 1, and it says that I saw before the throne Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus, the high priest, and he had Satan at his right hand. So, you know, when you get to the book of Revelation, it's talking about that mark of the beast in your right hand. That's Satan. That is the god of civilization, is your governor. Your government is, you know, James chapter 4, verse 4. 1 John chapter 5, verse 19. 2 Corinthians 4, 4. All of them say that Satan is the god of civilization. So until Satan is removed as the god of civilization, we have that mark in our right hand. That's our right hand is our government. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. You're living on planet Earth, and it doesn't matter what country you live in. You know, you're basically a subsidiary of the United States or the British banking system. And when it talks about that mark of the beast in your forehead, that actually doesn't say on your forehead. It says, I can't think of what the word is. It's a Greek word, but it basically is a pineal gland. Now that you can kind of control, because if you are doing everything you're supposed to keep from going to prison or being executed, it doesn't mean you worship Satan. It just means you're doing what you have to do to get by. That's different than somebody who dedicates their lives to Satan. You know, somebody that believes in the system. That's because it's not on your forehead. It's like the Greek word means the space right behind your eye sockets. That's what it means. It breaks down.
Couple more quick hellos. Brulak says, I made it here, and Great Bay says, good evening. Boy, a lot of people in chat are talking about all the different meats they're eating. They went from duck, then they talked about eating goat, and now a couple people seem to be joking, talking about monkey meat and squirrel meat. So
probably the same thing. Actually, I was told rat and squirrel is the same thing, but I was talking to an Asian person that said, nah, it don't taste the same at all. Probably would be the same to us because we don't eat any of it, you know. I've eaten squirrel. I've never eaten a rat, but it's like my mom. If she tastes a fish, she can tell you if it's a trout or a catfish or a mullet. And I'm like, how do you do that? And how can you do that? But see this right here? This is my wife just gave me this SD card out of her camera. She wants me to edit a video for her because we baked a turkey today, and she took video of me baking a turkey, and that's what. So I don't care what you're bragging about. I guarantee you, I ate better than anybody out there right now. I'm so sleepy, you know. turkey gravy, that's almost like, I don't know, like heroin or something.
Next question comes from Synoptic Problem. They say, since the Nephilim had intercourse with women, could it be possible that their DNA found its way into Mary and into Jesus?
You know, I had a talk with a guy. People think I just know everything, right? Because I know things that other people don't know, but I don't know everything. But this guy, Stephen, the guy that, if you've ever seen the video I did about the talents and the minas, that idea was given to me by a guy. The guy's never read the Bible. He said, you know, just looking at the Bible and that story of the talents and the minas, you know, the king is actually Satan. And I've been going to church all my life, and everybody says the king is God. Right? But it isn't. It's the god of the system. And it made sense. And I made a video about that. I think it's called The Talents and the Minas. But that same guy one day, I was talking to him. And he says, I'm going to say something. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. And I'm not trying to get you mad at me. But I think that the Nephilim are us. And it's like, wait a minute. That would explain a lot. You know, because Jesus, when he, and it wouldn't be so much that the Nephilim's DNA got into us. It says very clearly in the very early parts of the Bible, like Genesis chapter 9, right? Genesis chapter 9, verse 10, I think. Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and it's like they came and they took for themselves the daughters of men, mainly all that they chose. And they reproduced the fellers. That's where the Nephilim is. It's the fellers, those who cut down trees. Okay, I don't see anything in that that's any different than us. You know, so later when Jesus was addressing the religious leaders, he called them sons of vipers. Well, what would a Nephilim be? It's like the demons or the angels. Satan was called a viper. You know, if you're the son of a viper, that means you're half demon and half human. And there was really no reason to suspect that the Pharisees' mothers had been impregnated by serpents. So yeah, it's possible that all. Well, you know, here's the thing about Jesus. Jesus was supposed to be the one that didn't have any Nephilim DNA in him at all, and that's going to be part of the Melchizedek thing, man. I don't want to give away any secrets right now, but here I will say this: that all of these gods from the ancient past, they were half human and half angel, right? Or half God, half human. And if you look through world history, that story is not confined to the Bible. You know, all of these ancient warrior kings like Nimrod and Alexander the Great, Pharaoh of Egypt, all of these ancient kings, every one of them, their claim to fame was that their mother never had sex with a man because they were produced by their mothers having sex with gods. You know, that was Alexander the Great went to his grave thinking that his father was Zeus, because his actual father, Philip, said that when he went in on his wedding night, when he went in to his wife, that she was in the bed with a huge serpent, and she was having sex with this serpent, and so he never had sex with her after that. So the story gets repeated over and over again. Well, if you're going to fight against that, how would God respond to that kind of attack by Satan? Well, virgin birth. Jesus' mother was not a serpent. It was Jesus' mother was half God and half human. You know, he's called the Son of Man, and he's called the Son of God. He's the only person in the Bible that's spoken of as the Son of Man and the Son of God, unless you count the Nephilim. That's a good question. This one here I like because I knew the answer. I think I know the answer.
I think kind of associated to that, Simple Sister Living brings up a movie called Gods of Egypt, and she thinks that the giant gods were supposed to be Nephilim, though they were not called that specifically.
That's another. Yes, Uzuma sent me that. He's like, "You got to watch this. You got to watch it." And I said, "Okay." And every now and then I'll bring something up, and he said, "Did you get that out of the Gods of Egypt?" Like, no, I just read that out of the Bible. And he goes, well, you know that's in there, right? And I said, look, I got to go watch it again. I can't remember if that was in there or not. But yeah, there's all of that whole Gods of Egypt thing, which obviously is supposed to be the story of, it's supposed to be the Bible story. It's not. It's completely weird, but it is the Bible story. I mean, if you look at it, there's a lot of stuff in there that's, you know, fantasy-like, but who knows? Maybe that is the way it was. Did you see the movie, Ala Toledo?
Yeah, I saw it, but
don't remember.
I remember it. I just enjoyed the movie as a movie. But I do agree. I think all mythological creatures, from minotaurs to satyrs or whatever, were all creations, and they were empty of a spirit, right? And then when the Nephilim died, the Nephilim spirit went into all these genetic mutations.
Hey, look, that's just speculation, brother.
Yeah,
but it is. It's speculation, but it's based on some very sound foundations. You know, I mean, it seems to me that, you know, when it talks about bad people later on, it talks about they filled with the unclean spirits. Well, where would that come from? You know, if God's Holy Spirit is what brought all life onto this earth, then what part of God would be unclean? Well, it isn't. It's the wicked gods, the spirits of the Nephilim, or maybe that's all that it was to start with. You know, when Abraham ran out to meet Jehovah and the two angels, he brought them. He killed a cow and ate that, and they had honey and cakes, and you know, they're fleshly beings in some way. So were those people that were possessed by angels, or were the angels at that time in fleshly bodies? And you know, I don't know how that works. I mean, I do. I know that after the resurrection, we'll talk to these folks, and they'll tell us how it worked. So,
a couple more hellos. Uncle Nestor joins, says hi, y'all. God bless. Puff, puff. And he says that the trailer that somebody else made was epic on your homepage. Super U68.
BMX Ion it's like 3 in the morning at his house right now, but last week he did write me and say, man, well, I clocked in. You weren't there. Where were you? because we had our time change. You know, over there they didn't change the time, so we were an hour off from all of our European viewers. But anyways, yeah, he might be, BMX Ion made that trailer, and he may be watching right now. So if we say thank you to him, he'll hear us, hopefully. Or I'll tell you this, he'll hear it tomorrow if he ain't hearing it right now.
Yeah, and I think he also deserves a thank you because he's one of the channels and websites patrons, patron saints, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah, and look, he's posting stuff. He's started making things where he takes clips out of my videos and puts them together so that you got, you know, a condensed, powerful, like 5 minutes of what normally I would put out. Of course, the hour-long thing is what you need if you want to get your Bible out and spell check me. But if you just want to get a rush of energy, you know, he's making things like that right now.
One more quick hellos from Super U68. It says, hi, all. I'm sorry I'm late. Now, Grandma Patty goes back to the mark of the beast, and she says, I thought the mark in the head was what people think, and the hand was what people do. Same
thing, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, that's what the right hand and left hand, that illustrates exactly what it means. The government, your right hand, you know, and that's basically because we are right-handed. That's what we use to do most things. So that's what controls us, or what we do, and then of course what we think is controlled by that part of our brain, you know. So we did a podcast just yesterday's. Is it up? Is our new podcast up?
After this, it'll be up in about a half hour after this.
So everybody needs to go there. We had, especially Me. He's the one that was saying he was a police officer. Well, we interviewed a police officer about how to live a godly life in a godless world. And we kind of went over all of that Mark of the Beast stuff. We didn't specifically say Mark of the Beast, but, you know, how do we differentiate ourselves from those who accept the Mark of the Beast? Well, because there is a difference. You know, they're driving a car, we're driving a car. Which one is sinning the most? Well, there is a difference. If you're the guy that's trying to just get by, or if you're the guy that's getting a brand new Mercedes-Benz SUV every year, you know, how deeply meshed are you with this system, you know, with civilization, and you know, are you just trying to get by? It's one of the things about family reunions. You want to just force yourself into a depression. Go to a family reunion. You know, it's not like a hand-picked group of people who are spiritual. These are guys that are out there, and they're sitting there talking about who won this certain football game and which politician is going to wreck the world and which one's going to save it, and they're talking about which vehicles they're thinking about buying and all that silliness. And you know, I'm like a, what do they call it, fifth wheel, third wheel, or so I was just sitting there nodding my head going, yes, I do believe you have a point there.
Jake Green's Model Car Shop jumps in, says, hi, Henry. My dad won't stop being a dork. Now, going back to...
That never stops.
Yeah. Going back to the Mark of the Beast, Kitchcool lays down some pretty heavy stuff here. So he gets into the Greek meanings, talking about which hand and ambidextrous and such. And he says the Greek word metapon, reason why... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word I was trying to come up with, metapon.
Yeah, metapon. He says the reason why is because of this ancient Greek word, because it means the mind. The metapon is not the forehead, and it's not even under the skin of the forehead, but deep inside the brain. The other location for the Mark of the Beast is said to be on the hand. The Greek word hand is kairos, does in fact mean hand. However, to anyone reading the Bible, it's obvious they often used as metaphorical. In chapter 13:16, this mark specifically said to be placed dextrius kairos.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Lord. Kairos is like the Lord. Dex. Right. Yeah. You can finish reading. I'm sorry. I'm just getting excited that he knows that.
That he was just clarifying some stuff, and he laid this pretty heavy stuff down in there. So.
Hey, he's trying to usurp Usamos's Because that's what Usamas would have done. You know, he knew. That's out of one of my videos. I recognize that. That's where he didn't come up with that on his own.
I think it's those British guys. I don't know. They like to be by the book, you know. Maybe.
Yeah, we got we got 3 now, right? Don't we have 3 guys over there that are? Oh wait, no, we got a new guy that's Polish. And he's really talented illustrator. I'm all the time like, okay, this guy, if he calls me and says, "Can I please make an illustration?" Because he does animation, and it's like, wow, this guy's talented. I need him on the team.
Going back to the Nephilim now, Suze J asks, does the Nephilim spirit come through civilization?
It created civilization. You know, a human being, just a perfect human being. Why would we cut trees down? You know, that's a feller. They pave over God's planet. They fight wars. I mean, that's what the Nephilim were. You know, it says they're mighty men of old, the men of renown, the famous men, and Trump's, Obama's, Washington's, Hitler's, you know, all them guys that rule the world. Pope, whatever the Pope's name is now. I stopped keeping up with those guys 6 religions ago.
Pop-Tart Dumb, going back to, that was the person that moved to the farm, says their mom has lost faith in God, though they're not sure she ever really had faith. Do you have any advice about trying to share Bible truth with her?
I think one of the things I was talking about, I don't know if it was on the podcast or live stream, is that we are told, you know, the logos. Yeah, I did a video called the logos, right? That word logos gets translated as the word, but it's actually logic. The word is logos, but there's Legos, which is called a name, and that's where we get our word logo, but it's also where we get the word nonsense, because there's a word that's like, can't remember whether metalogos, something like that, and it means the opposite of logic. And so there are those kinds of people that are logical, and then people that are not logical, and it says very clearly in the Bible, and I don't know how it's worded like the King James wording, but it's something like, do not involve yourself in disputes over word, because you only do harm to the hearer. In the original languages, what it says is, don't attempt to use logic for someone who's not receptive to it. You know, someone who's illogical, because that just causes them to be upset. It makes them angry. You know, you cannot make an unlogical person be logical. You know, that's part of the reason that I'm impoverished today. I've spent my whole life thinking I could just reason with people. You can't reason with people. You know, it's amazing to me that this world still works, you know, because it seems like if somebody can't know just the basics of difference between right and wrong, there's no way in the world that they could manufacture automobiles or pump petroleum out of the ground, you know, but illogical people seemingly can do that kind of stuff.
Chester Richardson says, cast not your pearls before swine.
That's a good one, yes. That's the second one he's come up with today. That's good.
Who Me, talking about the mark of the beast, Who Me says, isn't it properly translated forehead and, quote unquote, and the right hand, not forehand or the right hand? It's both together, right?
Now I'm stumped. I don't want to say yes or no to that, because somebody can check me on that. You know, I don't know. I think it is both. Yeah, it's and. I think it is and. And if I'm wrong, okay, I'm wrong. But I think that it's both. I mean, marked in the forehead and on the right hand. Not the forehead, but I mean in King James Bible, the forehead and the right hand.
Uncle Nesta got excited when you mentioned the animator that might be joining us. Says Sustenance Cartoons, and I have a little dreadlock character to animate your videos and, you know, walk around and be cute.
Hey, I tell you what, I would like to see. Well, I'm not gonna, because he's probably listening. He's like, man, I don't want to put any pressure on him, because I haven't said anything yet. I was just like, thank you so much for, you know, what he sent me. But yeah, you I sent you the videos, right? Didn't I send you those videos that he did?
Oh yeah, he's like a pro. Yeah.
It was like they got some kind of thing. It was like a news program where he was being given an award by the Polish government for his animation skills.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't imagine he would have time. I mean, I think it's an entire team that does stuff that he.
Yeah, well, also it said in there something. He said something to me about how the reason he's able to do that is because it's all he does. He doesn't do anything else. He just does that.
And BMX Ion has joined, so he's in there and he's telling people to sub to his channel.
There you go. He had probably joined late, and he doesn't even know we were talking about him earlier.
Yeah, well, everybody's talking. So next question comes from JK. They say, what can Christians do about suffering with depression? Life can be good and very blessed, but depression seems to grip so many of us.
Okay, this is somebody that is depressed, because that's my question, you know. Because, I mean, people, I'm sustenance and covering, right? I've got all the answers, but, man, I tell you what, you know, I told you I had turkey today. Well, yesterday I went to a family reunion get-together, and it used to be fun because I would go with my dad, and we'd see, and it wasn't like we were going there and seeing my uncles and aunts and my cousins, which I don't really even know them, but we were seeing my dad's cousins. These are people I've never even met, and I would see them once a year with my dad, and I would hear my dad sitting there next to his cousins. They were talking and laughing. It was so much fun. And then, you know, I mean, that's 15 years ago, so what's happened since then? All my uncles and aunts have died. All of their husbands and wives have died. You know, all of my mom's brothers and sisters are dead. All of their husbands and wives are dead. And you go down there, and now I'm the guy that's getting ready to die, right? So I'm sitting there with my cousins, and here's this one here, and it's like, okay, what do you talk about? Okay, how's it feel since your wife died last year? You know, I mean, that's what I was sitting at a table with my cousin whose wife just died, and his mama just died, right? And over here is my girl cousin that she just lost, in the last 5 years, she lost her daddy and 2 sisters. Man, this is a party. I felt like blowing my brains out when I was sitting over there. It was so sad, you know. And I mean, it's you'd think, you know, in the Bible it says as Christians we don't mourn as the rest do. Well, it's true. We have a hope, and we understand what our hope is, whereas the rest of the world just is going towards this cliff, and there ain't no stopping. But at the same time, you know, you think like when my dad died, I never even cried when my dad died because I was just so waiting for it. You know, he was so sick for so long, but that was horrible. That's not like, oh, I'm sustenance and covering. I'm not sad at all. It was terrible. And there's a verse that I think about, and there's a reason I think about this, okay? It's like the in the churches, at least when I was growing up in the Catholic churches, the worst sin in the world is suicide, right? Because that is the unforgivable sin, is suicide. Well, the reason being is because the Catholic Church worships Satan. Now, when you commit suicide, you're basically telling Satan that his world doesn't work, which is a sin to Satan. But in the Bible, the reality is the Catholic Church is wrong about this. And this isn't just the Catholics, because I was Protestant for a while, and I was also Jehovah's Witness. And the reality is they all say that that's the worst possible sin. It's the sin of a coward. And I was like, how can it be cowardly to kill yourself? You know, the reason I don't kill myself is because I'm a coward. You know, I'm not going to blow a hole in my body. But the Bible says that God's heart, or God is with the hearts of those who are without hope. And what is a sign? I mean, what is more hopeless than someone who's suffering from depression? If you're suffering from depression, that means that right now you are closer to God than most people. That's all I can tell you. I mean, that's just words. That doesn't make you stop being depressed, but it's the reality. The reality is that God doesn't want you to be depressed, and He's going to fix this whole world just for you. That's the fact.
You know, about the suicide, Kitchcool said it's illegal to destroy government property.
Yeah, that's it. That's why it's the worst sin in the world. Father Satan will be upset.
A couple comments from 4 people about depression. First, Uncle Nesta says, "Praise Jesus, and you can't stay depressed. It's simple." Garo America says, "Depression equals no goals." Simple Sister Living says, "Everybody needs more morning sunlight and time outdoors, away from screens and LED light to help with depression." And then Matt Wilcox says, "In my case, taking a good multivitamin every day will lift like a fog any depression."
Yes, I'm sitting here while you're talking. I'm thinking about Gary America. That's the one I was looking for last week, right? That they left they made a comment before the stream, and then when the stream ended, I went back to answer the comment, and it ain't there because I don't get that stuff. I don't get the stuff that's going on live. All I get is the comments that appear after the stream is posted as a video. But I can't remember what they were saying now, but they said something, and I was like, I wanted to check on them. So Hero Merker, or Garo Merker, if you're the guy that made, I don't know, it was something about a health problem or something. I'm not really sure, and it may not be the same person, but I think it is. But just send me an email or put a comment on this after it becomes a video, or send me a message or something if you can. Although now I don't even remember what it was I wanted to talk about. But if you remember, then send me some, tell me how you're doing or whatever.
A Chain of Hills just chimes in and says, "I'll be rewatching later. Just wanted to chime in and say good evening to all, Sustenance, Ale, and everybody else." Humi makes a comment regarding depression. Says, "My wife died 14 years ago, and I still grieve every night when I go to bed, and every morning I wake up." Let's see. Next comes from Super U, going back to the idea of the mark of the beast. Super U says, "Interesting how some people, including themselves, when in deep thought, put their hand to their forehead."
Oh, yeah, there you go. Like almost everything I do in life, after I've done it, I go.
Let's see. Next question comes from Karen Bain. "Are we personally supposed to partake of the Lord's evening meal on our own, or is this considered a blood sacrifice?"
Yeah, you know what? That's like, I think I did. I said that in a video one time because the whole thing is, as a Jehovah's Witness, I was a Jehovah's Witness for years, and it sounds like a question from a Jehovah's Witness, because Catholics, they don't do the Lord's evening meal once a year. They do it every week, and if you're old, you go to church in the morning, and you do it like every day. That way you can eat the cookie right before you die and get you into heaven. But if you, with Jehovah's Witnesses, the Lord's evening meal is based on the same rituals that every church on earth does. And it's a real struggle for the churches to support that fiction. When Jesus sat down with his apostles and he knew he was going to die, he basically told them, from now on, anytime you're eating a meal, think about this meal that we ate together. He wasn't telling them, from now on, at sunset, on Nisan 14, every year, instead of a Passover, have a Lord's evening. All that stuff is that's all added. That's not in the Bible. And then later, when it talks about Paul explaining what they're supposed to do at their love feast, that's not even related. Linguistically, there's not a single word used in the Lord's evening meal that's unique to those passages that is used by Paul later when he's talking about their love feast. That's not the Lord's evening meal. Now, Paul did address how Jesus, what he did at his last day of life when he was eating with his apostles, but it was not anything about performing a ritual. And yes, it is a blood sacrifice, because that's what the Passover was. In the Bible, when it says abstain from blood, and there are a couple of scriptures that says Christians are to abstain from blood. Well, that word blood, and Synoptic Problem can back me up on this probably. That word blood actually means, it can mean blood, like just the fluid blood, but it mostly can mean blood sacrifices or just murder in general. And that word, as it's used there, abstain from blood, is basically saying abstain from the blood sacrifices in the temple. Now, the blood sacrifices in the temple were the Passover. And so the Passover, you know, Satanists have preserved the Passover festival by turning it into the Lord's evening meal. But if you're having the Lord's evening meal, even if you're in a religion that says this is just a piece of bread, this is just some wine, that's still a celebration of the blood sacrifices, so it should be avoided. I know that's kind of harsh, but, you know, I think, once again, if somebody knows what video that is, I did a video about I think it's called Abstain from Blood. I think I have a video called Abstain from Blood. I'll try to look it up and I'll post it in the description box on this video if I don't forget.
Next question comes from Rick Ballard. It says, what are your thoughts on right-hand and left-handed people today?
I don't think it means anything. I think all the, like the, if you've seen any of my videos about the restoration of our solar system, where I say all the planets come back and they go into alignment the way they're supposed to, and they do what they're supposed to. I think that when it talked about Judah and Benjamin and their interaction with the nations around them, it was talking about our earth and moon. The earth being the right hand, the government, the governing authority of the left hand, which is the moon. And in the past, you know, we've got a bunch of stories and a bunch of mythological stories about Venus going from planet to planet and causing problems, and then Mars coming along behind and causing destruction of planets. You know, it's called the destroyer, Apollyon. And Venus is the only female of all the planets. So the god, you know, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, these are all male gods. They're the male planets. Venus is the only female planet. Well, the thing about it is all of the planets spin, depending on how you're looking at them, they spin clockwise. Venus is the only one that's counterclockwise. Now remember, we're just talking about dots. When you're out there in the nighttime looking at the sky and you see Venus, it's a dot. There's no way in the world that people in the ancient past could have understood that Venus was spinning the opposite direction of all the other planets. And yet, just by chance, Venus is the only female goddess, and Venus is the one that's spoken of as going around and causing all of this havoc amongst the male gods, you know, getting them into these wars over beautiful goddess Venus. So, how that relates to humans doesn't relate at all. Doesn't mean anything. I mean, it might be that you're from one of your ancestors was part of the tribe of Benjamin. If you go back and look, you'll always see, if you look up left, the word left, and it's always the tribe of Benjamin that it's talking about. They were archers. It said that when the nation of Israel, and this is when all 12 of them were together, when all 12 tribes were still together, 11 of the tribes went to war as a unit, and Benjamin went as a separate unit because they were all left-handed. So they, you know, if they're in a formation, you don't want a left-handed guy next to a right-handed guy, you know. I mean, that's just that part's speculation. I don't know why Benjamin was set apart from the rest of them, but they were always spoken of as left-handed. That's like the blood type thing, you know. Is our blood type caused by demons? You know, how about the color of our skin? You know, is the color of our skin caused by demons? That's a big religious thing.
I think going back to this idea of the Lord's Supper, Suze J says, do we need to repent for taking communion?
Just don't go. Repent means turn away, so just don't do it. I mean, it's almost like, why, if you go there and you participate in anything, and then you go there knowing it's wrong, and then you say, you go there knowing, well, as soon as I get done, I'll ask for forgiveness. I mean, that works, I guess. God is all forgiving, but just don't go. Now, if you're talking about something you did in the ancient past, you know, repentance does not mean perform a ritual or say you're sorry. It just means don't do it no more. And I think that's a lot of people don't understand that. When you realize something's wrong, you just don't do it anymore. But another part of repentance is just realizing that it's, you know, you're not supposed to, like driving. I drive still. I know driving's wrong. You know, people die from car accidents. People die building cars. People die, you know, pumping oil, working in oil wells. So it's a sin to use a car. I use a car all the time. But I don't go out and get it. I don't make that my goal in life. My goal in life is not the use of a car or to show off my car or anything. We're different. You don't have to worry about, that's the thing about religion. Religion is like a list of rules, and we're not under no list of rules.
About the left hand, right hand thing, Grandma Patty chimes in that left hand is church and right hand is government, possibly.
Yes. Well, I mean, you think about it. Almost all ancient religions are based on, like the sex worship. It's the sex goddess, the creation of the Nephilim. The mother goddess, and that's always the moon. I mean, any ancient religion you go to, I don't care what it is. You can go to like Islam. You've got that crescent. As always, there's a moon. A moon is involved. That's religion. It's the movement of the moon around the earth. That's what the Song of Solomon is. It's a song about the movement of the moon relative to the sun. And, right hand is government, left hand is religion. Well, that's what, when that, in Malachi chapter 3 and verse 1, when it says Joshua went to before the angel of the Lord with Satan at his right hand. That's the high priest of Israel with Satan at his right hand. But then again, Joshua is named Jesus. Jesus is here. He's our Father. And yet, who else is here? Satan. So that's our left hand and our right hand. We got Jesus and Satan. You see those like cartoons where there's a little cartoon sitting on the shoulder. Go ahead, do it. You want to do it. No, that's bad, my son. So, yeah, it's like that's what it is. Left hand, right hand.
One final hello at the very, very end. It comes from Furikuri Yuri. Good evening, everyone. Now,
is he still fishing? He's the guy I told you I was checking out my sound and stuff before you and I were talking. That's the guy I was talking to on Skype.
Well, he came in at the very end. So
yeah, it's probably got. He was stealing. He couldn't catch any fish. He was stealing fish from the ducks.
I guess so. You had mentioned something, so I moved up Kitchcool's comment in the line, and he says he was thinking of something last night. He said, in all ancient cultures, they all have the same story, very similar to the Jesus story. Born of a virgin, baptized at 30, died, resurrected, So all these different similarities between ancient cultures.
Oh, yeah. Always water, always blood. It's the same thing. And it's basically like, you don't know who's copying who. Did they all come up with this on their own, or are they all copying one another? He sent me an email about, I sent you that copy of like the rough draft of the part 2, and he sent me a thing back for part 3. I just copied the whole email and stuck it in there. I'll go straighten it out later, but that's how this works. In case anybody out there is wondering, my brain doesn't just come up with this stuff all on its own sometimes. It's the people around me that are steering me. Of course, there's a lot of people trying to steer me the wrong way. You got to use some common sense, but I got a few people that work with me that give me good advice.
Next question comes from Great Bay in 1961. Says, I'm not sure how they got onto this topic, but I guess it was because Nesta was talking about his dreadlocks again. But Great Bay asks, in the Sikh religion, not cutting your hair because it gives you strength. Is there anything in the Bible that corroborates that belief? Like Samson's hair, they cut Samson's hair and he lost his strength.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that. I don't know. Samson is kind of like representative of the earth, and so having his hair cut may be like representing deforestation, but it could also just be the condition of mankind because back in the ancient past, no one cut their hair, and we were much, back before the flood, people lived at 900 years. And, when people start cutting their hair, they're living 100 years. But I don't think it's going to help now. If I don't expect to be making it to much past 73. Daddy died at 73. And my uncles, most of them are all dead around 73. So, I don't think growing my hair is going to get me to 74.
Okay, the final question tonight is going to be from Synoptic Problem. He says, could it be that Christianity was a false flag operation created by the ancient Romans and later the Illuminati to divert our attention from their global agenda? And then please take us out afterwards.
Well, I honestly, when I look at what Christianity is supposed to be, if you look at the Bible and you read all these stories about deacons and elders and churches and stuff like that, and by the time you sort through it and go look at the original language words, basically the Bible was written for human beings, and the message is love and family, and all that junk about elders and deacons is mostly about fathers and sons and grandsons, real actual families. And so when the Catholic Church took over, and they didn't take over as soon as Jesus died, and they didn't take over when the apostles died. You know, Catholic Church was a long time in coming, and when I say Catholic, I mean Christianity, because everything that calls itself Christian today is basically a Catholic religion with a different pope, maybe a little different costume, but it's all the same thing. It is Satan's attempt at hijacking Christianity, the real Christianity, because, you know, when they talk about all of their martyrs that died on crosses, what they fail to tell you is that the Catholic Church was a Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is the one that made those martyrs. And it was the same exact guys that decided to call themselves Christians. These same human beings were still alive. You know, all of the people who founded the Christian religion are the same people that participated in burning Christians and feeding them to the lions. Oh well, that was the end of our live stream once again for the week, and we hope you got something out of it, enough that you'll come back next week. And as always, if you do not wish to survive, don't listen to me.